got his Tim's. I got
The
my
final
eggnog
frontier.
latte.
Space, time, stars, moon, sun. We're not talking about space today. We're talking about space.
Are we doing what is this, beat poetry or something?
No, have you Space, the Final Frontier? That's like a I think it's a Carl Sagan like opening to one of his documentary type things, right? Right?
You would know
Right?
better than me.
I think
I
so.
mixed up Carl Sagan with Richard Feynman and like Neil deGrasse Tyson saying so.
I don't
The
know.
best one to quote.
All right, so we're not talking about space. We're talking about
we're
space.
talking about being punks.
Oh yeah, we are talking about punks. Explain explain how we're punk, because that's the most punk thing to do, is to give a long-winded explanation about how punk you are.
About how you're punk. Yes,
Yep.
yes. Well, we were talking about how there are obvious things we can do. We can like brag about our backgrounds, and there's like certain keywords. Huh?
Obvious things that we can do to do what? No one has that context.
Oh, context. Context is not punk. Punk is when you say things with absolutely no context.
Okay. Yeah, no, just keep going. You're right.
In order to like, win at distribution, right? In order to like gain an audience or whatever. Yeah, and then it's kind of like we have done it in the past when we have to write something down, for example, for an award that never happened. Then we would like list our credentials, but then we don't really like emphasize it, nor do we post about it very often.
Yeah.
And that's like the obvious path, right? Is that you become an SME, a subject matter expert.
SMEs are not punk.
Yeah. But then like, we're like, oh, but the main problem / good thing that we have is we want to do it our way. Like the Limp Bizkit song.
We want to win. We want to win the internet, but also not feel gross while doing it, which is surprisingly hard to do.
We feel gross about a lot of things that people don't feel gross about, right? There's nothing wrong with being a subject matter expert. There's nothing wrong with like, leading into your obvious external legible strengths. But we have the problem of not wanting to take the front entrance.
Tangibly, it's like we could both lean on our degree kind of stuff to be like, hey, we are credible and we know stuff about stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But when we do that, we feel, I mean, like, I don't know about you, I feel like I look at the other people that explicitly do that and I'm like, I think you suck. And I don't want to I don't want to present myself in kind of like the same bucket, like for lack of a better way of describing it. Like, I don't want to present the LinkedIn version of me, because that's not how I view the world. And it's not how I process the world, even though that's how a lot of people process the world. And so we could like come on here and be like, like ex-military officer, leadership instructor, Harvard Business School graduate, and then like pretend I knew what the fuck I was talking about. But like, I am just trying to figure it out. You could do that too, and we. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, whoops! You're lagging a little bit today.
Yeah,
I was gonna say GM to our guests as we catch up on your internet.
Welcome. Yeah, we're doing call-ins. Call in the chat. Chat. You don't realize the power you have. Kristen and I are so desperate for engagement that most of the time, if you're not like spouting gross dog whistles, we'll engage.
Well, you know how like now ChatGPT supposedly has the 1-800 hotline.
Yeah.
Imagine that's a 1-800 OK Bagger hotline where we can do like voice clips of people. That would be neat.
There's some good shows that do that. The problem is the ones that work well are pre-screened, like live shows.
Oh.
Like even radio shows, they'll do like multiple call-ins, right? Because like half the time it's a freaking psycho, right? And so, or someone just pops in, says the N-word a bunch of times and hangs up. I mean, I'm saying some of you are definitely psychos statistically.
Yeah. So this relates to space because we're saying how like creative space has to do with the how, right? Like how you do something matters and is the subconscious reasons why things are hard, right? Because it's like I want to achieve goal X, and I forget that, oh no, my subliminal requirement is I must do it through my way. Requirement Y. So like unless I like consciously realize I'm doing that, then that thing is not gonna get done. Or like, to the satisfaction that we want to do. So I feel like what I'm trying to say is like we can be punk and stuff, but we have to be legible to ourselves, maybe. I don't know.
I mean, I think it's about being consciously. It's just like consciously making decisions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you can be the reflexively rebellious version of like past that just like disagrees because he's like, screw you, I don't want to listen to whatever perceived power authority I think that you have. And that's also not at that really punk, right? Because sometimes authority is right. And so like for us, what we really were talking about is we know we want to do this for 10 years, but we won't make it to 10 years if we start doing stuff in a way that doesn't give us energy, or at least like doesn't take away a ton of energy, because like doing stuff costs energy. And so like we could go out and then create a bunch of, I don't know, like do a bunch of paid like ads in these different spaces and kind of force growth that way, and like there's nothing wrong with that. It's just it'll get a bunch of people that maybe didn't have like quite the sense of what we were doing. And if we can grow, maybe or more likely we'll feel better about that, even though it's just, I don't know, kind of random.
So, and there's also like some creator friends of ours who've gone through like programs and accelerators and whatnot, and I feel like even I also like a little bit not wanting to do that ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, like I think I inherently don't trust people's opinions about expressing themselves if they don't actively express themselves in some way, shape, or form. Like it's the same.
I feel like this runs into the same issue between like lesbians and gays.
Okay, explain that. out of my wheelhouse, but I'm here to learn.
Oh, this is so sad. This is stereotyped. Maybe I'm like, you can either clip this and I'll be dead, or this will make us viral. I think it's the same issue where like as someone of one camp, it's like I feel like the gay men are really good about like organizing and socializing, because it's like their social groups are very tight, whereas like women who are queer, like we're so happy in our own little islands. Well, and also like are incredibly hard to organize. I see this issue with Ashley Gavin, the comedian, right, the lesbian comedian, where like she explicitly says it, dude, you all activists, like queer women, are so anti-capitalist and anti-consumerist. You don't come to my show and buy my merch. So I feel like there's also this issue where like our creative punk rock crowd, including many of us in the chat, like we by definition have harder times with distribution because we are like edgy in a way. So it's tautological.
I mean, for the record, I like markets, which maybe puts me at odds with anybody that might like you specifically more than me. But but I think the point makes a ton of sense. And I mean, this is the conversation we were having yesterday about religion. Let's see if we can piss off everybody today. Like
we're gonna end in a bag.
Evangelical religions perform better than non-evangelical religions on the metric of people following their religion, because baked into it is like a memeticism of, hey, share this with other people and tell them if they don't follow it, they're going to hell or whatever. That's a really good mechanism for growth. We don't have an evangelical part of our ethos, and that's kind of our problem. One of our problems. The other problem is that we're not that interesting.
Yes, because a lot of these like fast growth mechanisms are based on cult-ish mechanisms. And yeah, I don't feel comfortable using any of those levers. But I feel like instead of saying like, that's why we're small. Like that's not the reason, right? I feel like by stating this explicitly, that allows us to be more deliberate about, okay, fine, this bucket of stuff doesn't work for us. Therefore, what is the next bucket of stuff that does work? Which, you know, we realize it's like all the punkish authors I like Kara Quinn, my favorite crush. Like, you know, she does things like one at a time. Like, you know, she grows the audience slowly. And like, you know, she says what she wants to say, and she hardly appears on any social media. Like,
good for her.
But because she's been doing it for like, you know, 10, 15 years, it works.
Yeah. Turns out slow growth is still growth. You just got to have the stamina. I want to address Space to Be's comment. I don't know if this is a joke or not, but what do you think, Kristen? What makes us better to talk to than other people?
Oh, I was trying to deliberately ignore that because that puts us in the comparison frame.
Yeah,
and I feel like Space to Be knows better than to do the comparison frame.
We're zagging while everybody else is zigging. That's the whole point.
Exactly. It's like, you know,
what's up, Gwen?
It's like that Zen teaching of like, you hold up one flower and it's a beautiful flower, but if you hold up two flowers, then you start to have a comparison mindset. Is this flower bigger or smaller? Is this one more beautiful?
But we have to do multiple things.
You're like, that's a nice story, but that doesn't apply for marketing distribution of creators.
No, I mean, explicitly, we are like in an economics framework, we are a replaceable good with any other thing that consumes people's entertainment time, infotainment.
Finding it here.
Yeah,
and I get it, right? Like we are, you know, in a marketplace, like, as much as we want to be punk rock, and then the marketplace is for attention, right?
Yeah.
So I think what I've observed is that creators who are more illegible, you know who I'm talking about, like all the ones who claim to be, like,
I have no idea.
They're more famous on Twitter. Sure. Visa or someone like that.
Yeah. Wait,
like they.
What? Sorry, keep going, and then I'll have a dumb question at the end.
I feel like they do it through status.
Yeah.
Which is something we also don't really like. It's like you seem cooler by being kind of intellectual.
Aloof.
Yeah. And then every once in a while you of course, like you drop some bangers. But there is, I feel like a lot of these people have a natural charisma, like, which is the cult leader charisma thing going on that works in their favor.
I would argue that it's learned, but sure, I agree with the
really?
I mean, I think that people have different levels of innate talent of communication, but anybody that does this for a long time, every time that they interact with somebody on the internet, in person, whatever, that's a rep to practice their like their social riz, right? And so
and so
yes,
like,
you can have like a go ahead.
So like Visa said it's explicitly on the timeline, which is like he wants to be like Mahatma Gandhi. So he is very intentional in what he's trying to do. But
dude, imagine Gandhi saying he wants to be Gandhi.
Jason being in the chat, like he asked me last night, like, you know, what is your plan with Cameron with OK Banger? And
who
you're gonna love this. You don't want to answer him.
Who are you? Who is this?
I'm talking about Jachin, the guy
in the chat. He's in the chat.
Yes, and he's the one with the blue cap who makes the fur, the very time intensive fur.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm sure, like, and Jason, you do many other things, but you are most famous for your fur. So, and I said, what is your intention with asking that question? I didn't give him a straightforward answer, right?
Because trying to poach you.
Yeah, sure. Like, I feel like he's because I've been asked this question before, and sometimes I feel like people are asking for a practical answer of like, oh, and how do you how do you make your shorts? Because he was asking like, are you guys making shorts on the internet? And I was like, you know, yeah, we use Opus Clip, blah blah blah. But then like, I feel like the tricky part of answering my intention for me is that, you know, I see like this creative work as a form of chaplaincy work, in that like I support people's self-reflection, whereas it would be so much easier if I say I believe in this form of Buddhism, and like, you know, therefore I'm trying to incept you these ideas.
Yeah.
But that's not what I want to do because that's anti-agency for me to do that.
Yeah.
And I realized, wait, like who is the equivalent of someone who does that then, you know? Like I think most creators are actually trying to incept you with something.
Yeah. Okay. So I have a lot of thoughts on group dynamics and how to get people to do stuff you want to do, because that's basically the job of a military officer. Like the military definition. Yeah, I was going to address that in a second. The like a job of a military officer, like definition of leadership in the army is the art and science of like getting a group of people to move in a common direction. Or it's like paraphrased, and the thing, like the subtext of that is, even if they don't consciously realize it, a lot of people want to know what they should be doing because it's intensely uncomfortable to live your life having to decide every second what the next right thing is. I mean, we literally talked about this on the last episode for a long time about me loving the military because I knew the right answer to everything. I knew how to tie my shoes, and and so the problem is like we both are living our life kind of with varying degrees of, oh, there isn't really a right answer, and that is a harder belief system to proselytize because it's not promising a carrot, it's promising the absence of a carrot forever. And that kind of sucks.
Yeah, it's a little anti. Not something people can hang on to really easily.
No, I mean, like telling somebody there is no shortcut to a happy life. Well, one, that's kind of disingenuous because you can totally have like a super happy life believing whatever, like religion, spirituality, whatever you want to believe, whether or not it's like right, we'll never know. But like once you kind of like, at least for me, like once you see, oh, the foundations of a lot of things aren't really as solid as the confidence of the person who first told you about those things. Like I couldn't unsee that, just like I can't unsee a lot of things in the world. And so it's a schism. Go back a couple episodes to hear us talk about schisms. Still writing that post about it.
Yes. You're trying to make schism happen.
I am trying to make schism a thing because I haven't found a better way to describe like inflection points in your brain where you go down a different path, and then all of the like path branches are just different than what they would have been if you hadn't had that moment of, oh, I don't know.
Yeah, so we had that recent schism, right? Which is why we actually chose the topic of space. It's like that moment where we realized, oh wait, we both want more alone time, which I thought was a very funny reveal for 2025.
Yeah, I've been reflecting on
the
that.
show is still going on, but I mean, I assume you mean this, like the rest of our time when we're not engaging in some practical work matters, right? And to me, that does have the component of like creating spaciousness in my life. And
what does that mean for you?
Explore that, because I feel like that you and I came to this realization from like very different directions, right?
Yeah, independently.
Yeah. So like for me, I realized that like a lot of my like desire to like socially engage is is like trying to feed a craving for like social approval, right?
Okay.
So once I realized that, and that creates a loop that can never be truly fulfilled, because a lot of these desires are like, temporary, as fluctuating, that kind of thing. So like by having more time to practice and all of that helps me. And the thing is, like, theoretically, yes, I'm already kind of doing that, but I think like I'm still very much like subconsciously I was still like negating what I want because of this like wish to fit in, to that kind of thing, right? And of course, there's also like healthy aspects of it, of like, I want to connect with other people. And like that is a more insidious cover, right? It's like, oh, of course, like, I want to be nice to people, therefore I want to hang out, which is like more, at least in my mind, a healthier version of it, right? But I think it's seeing that, oh wait, like that's not actually doing good in a broader sense, and it's better for me to have more in-depth practice than to socially engage to some degree.
Straight up.
It's sort of, it comes at a high cost, right? It's like, then I'll miss out, FOMO, that kind of thing.
Straight up, I did not quite follow you. I think I get the energy, but if I had to say it back, you are doing things not necessarily like in a performative way, but you are like doing things according to a game that you feel is maybe connected with like the right thing to do, either practically or emotion, like socially. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. So the schism almost is realizing that, wait, what I thought was the right thing to do is actually not the closer to absolute right thing to do.
Yeah. That's interesting.
How did you arrive at yours before blah blah blah?
So like I realized over the past like 6 weeks that I intentionally made more time to write, mostly poems, some other stuff in there too, and I never regret it. In most things in my life, if I do it repeatedly, I'll start regretting it, or there's diminishing returns or whatever. But I realized I'm definitely not close to the point of diminishing returns for writing. And that doesn't just apply to like written stuff. I play guitar. I like, screw around with riffs and excuse me, bits of songs with that too. And all of that makes me feel better afterwards. And I was like looking at all of the things I'm doing in my life, a lot of consumption of stuff, which I love to do. Like, but I was like looking at this balance of things, and I was like, oh, I do this thing. It makes me feel better. I can only do this if I'm by myself, because, and it doesn't like not literally by myself, because I'm doing a lot of writing in a coffee shop, but like effectively by myself, because in a crowded room that I don't engage with people in, that's still a lone space, and not like derogatory. And so like I just kept looking, and like you solve math problems for your college, right? Because you studied science. Like you understand what it's like to like look at a problem and you see it and you're like, oh, this has to be the answer because like this side of the equation stacks up this way, this side of the equation stacks up this way. Like you go through, you check your work, and you just keep looking at it and you're like, no, the answer is x equals 7. Like that is what is happening here. And no matter how I feel about that answer, like that is kind of what I think the truth of it is. And so I'm in my x equals 7 era of, if I want to make more stuff, I got to spend more time alone, and I got to like make the space for that. And what that means is sacrifice, because time is zero sum. You said that last episode, and I was like, damn, that's a really good way to describe that. Like the fact that time is zero sum means, hey, I have to cut down on like my consumption in some way, shape, or form, or be more efficient with work, which never happens. And so like it just all points to more alone time.
So I think that the insidious hard part is the building in public portion, because that feels, it's not consumption technically. You're technically sharing, but I feel like that act is interrupting. But yet, if you don't build in public these days, or share whatever you're doing creativity in public, then people don't follow along. And when you do show them that thing you made, they're just like, oh, like they don't get it unless you've showed them all the steps in between. So I feel like that's the hard part.
It sucks because context isn't punk.
Oh.
All right. So I'm gonna bring in
my own words in like 23 minutes.
This is what we do here. We turn riffing into callbacks into art.
This is actually one of my sore points. Speaking of shame, is that like when I was working in a corporate setting, I was not good about context setting. Like that like HBA consultant way of presenting.
Like
where you do like the high amount of context in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
I was not good at that.
Like, okay, so I don't understand. Can you say more? Like, I know how consultants talk. I know the confidence of a 26-year-old MBA that doesn't know anything about the world. Is that what you're talking about? Like just presenting with confidence, or like
present with confidence, and also like setting the context for executive leadership so that they give a shit. But it's on the way you're spinning a yarn because like what you do doesn't have any relationship to the ultimate KPI. Who knows? And then but people who are praised and promoted are really good at that.
Yeah. All right. So I used to do this. I was an aide to a colonel, and technically lieutenant colonel for any sharpshooters in the chat. I knew what I wanted this fucking guy to do always, because there was always the right answer, but anybody in any leadership organization that isn't basically super enlightened and like, some people truly believe in servant leadership, where they are effectively the vessel through which like they support the team. Most people are not. This guy was not. But I would always give him the obvious right answer. I would give him a plausible answer with like, frankly, a hidden flaw in there that wasn't too hard to find. And then I'd give him an obvious wrong answer. And so anytime I presented him with the recommendations, it would be fated to get to the one that I wanted him to do. But he had to do the journey himself of being like, oh, obviously we're not going to do option 3. Option 2, Armstrong. It's a good option, but you missed this. And like, I didn't fucking miss it. I put the mistake in there, but I needed him to find it. And then ultimately he decided to do option 1 because of his like enlightened brilliance of understanding, the military and the planning better than me.
It's important to give people false sense of agency and choice.
Look, I was fighting for my life, Kristen. I showed up at 6 and I left at like.
I'm taking notes.
No, it's managing up, right? Sometimes there is real hard decisions, and nobody needs a leader in any organization unless there is something that is out of the routine. Like, leaders exist to manage transitions. Like either transition between like a state of, not working into working or working into working, but whatever. Like, the leader is the thing to change the routine. Nobody needs a leader to show up and then do the same job every week, because everybody knows what they're supposed to do. And so I was helping the machine run by like getting him to do the things that everybody in the organization knew needed to happen. And he was, he just needed to feel like he was deciding it. That's not what I think good leadership is, but it is how most leadership is. And so I think it's a useful thing to have in your pocket. Consultants kind of do that too. Like,
oh, totally.
The Crazy Frog, I'm offended that you were saying I'm a company man. I am not a company man.
I'm telling you, he's so good at this stuff, corporate stuff.
Look, I can do it. I can put on my lizard suit. I can show up to work and I can fricking crush it. And I can submit my TPS reports on time, early, and also make the manager look good. I just hate it. I hate it because we're all going to die, right? Like, we're all going to die, and I don't want to fricking spend my time doing that. And, I'm fortunate enough to be able to make some decisions about my life. But anyway, most people, like, they're just in the situation that they're in. Nobody has to be born. And so I respect the hustle of everybody just trying to freaking live in whatever company, man, woman, or in between spot they're in.
Okay. So what are we doing practically for this space that we want to recapture next year? But I keep saying next year as though it is like a very far away clean slate, but that is obviously an illusion. It's just
tomorrow's never going to happen.
Oh, yeah? Oh, yeah. And apparently we get it wrong. You eat an IED LML.
No, not wrong.
Oh, thanks for joining us from the Twitter side, Thief. Gmail.
Yo, what's up, Thief? All right. Okay. So unfortunately, we do live in a corporeal world where we got to like make practical decisions. My practical decision, like, just I'm gonna keep doing the coffee shop thing. Although I got to figure out how to do that because I'm removing the office, closing down the office spot I have in Boston to be more in my house.
Also, we're gonna get a new film space.
Yes, yeah, you'll get a new background for new stuff hidden in the back. I've been carrying around a notebook. That's really helpful. I've been, when I'm not going to get rid of my phone, obviously, but I've been keeping my phone in other rooms when I'm not actively, hey, I need this, even when I'm like working. That helps a lot. Instead of having the phone in my pocket all the time, having a notebook near me really has been helping. It's so stupid. Like I don't like that works, because I want it to be cleverer than that, but I'm my biggest blocker to doing the things that I want to do, unfortunately.
How do we remove yourself when you yourself has to be the one to do the work?
Well, I bought a little box that locks up my phone for 30 minutes and I can't unlock it.
Oh, you got one of those phone lock boxes.
Yeah, so that helped. That actually, so I have a squat rack in kind of like the unfinished basement of the place that I'm renting, and so I'll lift in the basement.
That I lock you up in.
Yeah, that's my dungeon.
Reference
that's your dungeon.
Passed Out season 1.
Throwback. And so in between sets, I would screw around on the internet, and I realized that one, that like doubles the length of my time in the gym because I'm like spending too much time on there. But two, it also like removing that, because I need my phone in the room because I'm playing music. And so I lock it up for like 20, 30 minutes at a time. So if like, I want to change the track or whatever, I can during it. But then I just have like a book or whatever, or we talked about this before. I have a collection. I have like Walt Whitman's anthology, which I've been wanting to get through for a long time. And now I'm actually getting through it. And so just like, it's like, I hate that the trite advice about how to like feel better in your life works, because I want it to be more ascendant, but it's actually, I mean,
or it is punk. Because you have realized that it works.
Turns out Lindy advises Lindy. Use pen and paper. Read old books that have stuck around. Like, you just do those things, and at the very least, you'll have a different set of problems than everybody who's sucked into the magic rectangle. And don't get me wrong, I'm sucked into the magic rectangle. I
feel like the reason why we're sucked into magic rectangle is a little bit different than someone who is not a creator. You know what I mean? Because it's almost like literally we're in this like leaderboard, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, we're fighting.
Now. Yeah, we're all PvPing for attention for some reason. Which again, I personally
that's what it's set up to do.
I feel like this is a puppet master. Like, obviously my strings are pulled kind of situation.
Attention is zero sum too. You only have 24 hours of it in a day.
Right. So like how, like, I like how Humpty's in the chat. How do we as creators like manage that? Because I also feel this pressure, right? Of like, but if I don't post a banger every once in a while, I'm gonna go into the obscurity. So even if I do make something really good, no one's ever gonna see it. And if a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to hear it, doesn't make a sound.
I mean, I don't know the answer for somebody that's actually successful on the internet, because I'm not there yet. I know for somebody that's trying not to lose their goddamn mind while pursuing this path, I know I'm gonna consume internet content. I love it too much. Like in the to-do list of things in my day, I'm always going to watch 10 TikToks, 3 of which are cat videos, 3 of which are stupid skits, and 4 of which are like stand-up, right? Like I'm always going to do that.
Yeah.
And so for me, I don't even worry about that, like the consumption part of that. For one, the creation part of that is what I'm still frankly working on. Like, we figured out a rhythm with this that kind of works. We haven't figured out the distribution part of it, mostly because making clips kind of fucking sucks. Like,
yeah. So how does one, which we're figuring out, right? It's like, how do you be a creator that is almost like antisocial in a good way? Like, like we're trying to like thread that needle right now, right? Because we're like, when I was very shy about telling you that I want more alone time, because I was like, oh God, what kind of creator says that they want more alone time when you know that the typical path is to engage with the public even more?
Well, I mean, I think the reality of internet creators is they spend a lot of their time alone in a room. So I don't think it's weird to be like, creators need alone time. I think maybe a better way of reframing it is like, how do you do the upkeep, distributive, admin work of participating in the post content
the
discourse?
Town square. Yeah.
Like how do you like do that? And I think it's kind of like a min-max thing. So what's your opinion on Timothy Chalamet?
Well, apparently I saw a funny tweet about it. He's gone from his twink face to another face that starts with W.
Is that an offensive? I mean, I guess it is an offensive word. But so he's been doing the podcast rounds because he's savvy. He did a show with
bro now, right? He's gone from like
he's trying to be. I mean, like any like true bro will see him as like such an obvious theater kid that it hurts. He's too smart. He's too smart. Obviously he's going to dress the right way because he's Timothy Chalamet and he can afford somebody to tell him how to. But he had a nice little clip. I'll send it to you afterwards if I can find it. He said the obvious thing, which is like, hey, it's not healthy to participate in the discourse about yourself. And he probably knows that better than most people on the planet. But he said that as much as making things is about making things, it's also about the Colosseum's reaction to the thing that you're making now. And so that's like a really interesting way to think about making stuff online, because it effectively turns everything from a thing to a thing plus the meta thing about the thing. And you can't control it past a certain point. And in fact, what we're trying to do is create a Colosseum reaction to it. And how do we do that? Well, by having the lowest common denominator of it, of like this chat via clips. And so, like, I think stupidly, the way to do it is at first to just try to do it. Because if we're being brutally honest about it, we're not trying that hard at making clips, because it's been like 3 weeks and I haven't posted a clip.
Speaking of which, I want to tell the folks in the chat, that's the reason why we haven't been pulling up your dialogue as much, and we'll reference it verbally, but we realize that once we pull it up, then the clipping tool starts to zoom into our face to be a mega face for some reason. So it's a technical issue we haven't overcome yet.
We're figuring it out.
Yeah. Doing it live. But I do want to address how Crypto Sapiens and Crazy Frog and how about like censorship on the internet. So Cassie, our Cassie Hart is releasing something soon. So that might overcome some of these censorship issues. And I feel like we should all be on the lookout. It's gonna be cool.
I don't know. I'm not informed.
It's related to the equilibrium, but now finally there's a front end for the rest of us who are not doing the server stuff.
Sure. I'm less worried about internet censorship because I can't do anything about it. And I'm trying to worry less about things I can't do anything about. I'm just gonna say the shit I'm gonna say.
We're not censor worthy.
That's true. Nobody cares about us. We are in obscurity, space to be.
Yes.
All right. So I'm sorry, I'm catching up on the chat. I don't know. Kristen, are we leaning into anti-status plays? That was a comment we didn't engage with.
I did once design a t-shirt I never printed, which is like the anti-social club, but it's anti-status club for my friend.
That's funny.
So it's been a topic, not even just with Cameron, but with my other friends too, who are kind of Cameron-like, to be honest. So so it's something that comes out a lot. I feel like yes and no, because it's actually almost not punk to say that, right?
Sure.
Because it's actually quite common. I feel like among the like what we're saying is not that unusual either. There's a whole bunch of creators who are also like, we're gonna be illegible. Like it's almost like a stereotype on its own.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a rebirth of kind of hipsterism before it hit mainstream.
Yeah, we're just reinventing hipsterism, which has, remember hipster PDA? This is before your time, I think, on the internet. Like when you would take a bunch of index cards with a little binder clip, and you carry it around. I
mean, I've seen that. I didn't know what it was called, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a reference to Palm Pilots. Remember Palm Pilots or Visor? Did you ever have one of those?
My dad had a BlackBerry.
Oh. Age gap is really obvious here. So
it's not that big, but it's more kind of a culture gap, because from 2009 to 2018 I didn't have like any social anything. I was very anti-internet, not anti-internet because I used the internet a lot, but I was anti-social platforms because I was in this I had like an angry atheist phase in high school that overlaps pretty well with like the Reddit moderator, like anti-social influencer energy. I just, so like I just ignored and or just didn't see most of it.
Oh, okay. Well, I see that. Okay, at least Quinn knows what I'm talking about. And like the Blackberries were all the rage pre-iPhone. Yeah, and the movie was really good. Have you seen the recent movie that came out about the Blackberry story?
I've seen enough clips on TikTok that I know the story.
Oh, okay.
No, I haven't. I haven't seen it yet.
It's a pretty fun movie, and it's got.
I do really like Glenn Powell as a dickhead.
Yeah, exactly. Where he's just an older version, a bald version of Dennis.
And he still hasn't even begun to peak. It's incredible.
Yeah, but the thing is, I love it related to punk because it addresses the whole creator corruption issue, right? Like the inventor was pure and he was like obsessive about quality, and at the end he compromised. And of course they made it seem like, and that's why they tanked, but obviously it was lots of other market reasons.
A lot of things.
Yeah, but it's sort of like, it's like the quintessential like creator fear story, right? Of like, you got what you wanted, but at what cost, sort of thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm like, we're clearly in our self discovery, self acceptance,
in blurry era.
Yeah, in blurry era. Honestly, that's a good name for it. We're in our blurry era.
Oh, yeah.
I really do think that the build in public motive or build in public movement was real, was helpful, might have been a little bit of a bubble. Because
you think so? I mean, I see it in the indie hacker world.
Yeah, I think like
we
most
need an alternative.
Well, okay, so my theory of content is that the bar for what is the median good piece of content has steadily increased, maybe linearly, maybe super linearly. Who knows? I haven't done the math. But you compare a clip from today versus a clip from 10 years ago versus 15 years ago. The dopamine content per second is so much higher today, right? Like cat videos today would kill mid-2000s children. Like it would just destroy their brains, right? Like those there's so many things that were national news stories that just like wouldn't even rate 1,000 views on TikTok today. That also applies to build in public content, because making content is hard, making things is hard, being good at making things and making content about making things is double hard. And so like you can't just post a screenshot of what you're making and it be like meeting the bar of a good build in public thing. It has to be clever. If we want to reference some of the Farcaster meta right now, it has to be Purple Cow-esque. And
I was just about to drop that reference.
I beat you to it.
It's terrible that we both know that reference. That means we're spending way too much time reading the timeline.
Yeah. Al identified the nudie mag on my bed. No, we can get into the book on my bed. It's actually really related to what we're talking about, especially with status games. But anyway, so the whole point is, if you want to build in public, you have to just be better at making the content about it than you think or expect. And you can only do that if you do it for a long period of time, or you're just good at making content and like have that practice and reps already.
Yeah. Oh, I want to bring up this little comment from Jason.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, I just interrupted you.
No stress. It's not a big deal. I'm just devastated. Not a problem. But the point is, it's not as simple as building in public. You have to intentionally do it. And more, and it's kind of like a self-fulfilling rationalization type thing. Nikita Beer, who's very famous for selling a couple different apps that like went super viral, and then no, they're not like long-term valuable, but he like made a lot of money doing it, and he's like a great poster. He's like, you can't release an MVP anymore because people's expectations about products and apps are too high. And like you can release an MVP, it's just not going to do what you want it to do, because most people's expectations of using a thing is that it's like big tech quality, or like, you know, like really high quality indie dev quality. And so unless you have a very high skill base to do that quickly, it takes a long time to do that. And so I'm trying to figure out how to square that circle of, oh, I know I need to be engaging, or at least like getting reps in for the things that I want to get better at, but also posting every day shitty posts doesn't help me, because if somebody's like first or multiple touch points with me are like not good content, like you're done, because the algorithm knows that they didn't engage with you. So I'm trying to figure out how to have, like, someone made the point earlier about like impact over quantity. I don't think it's as simple as that, but I know that I need to make higher impact things. And so like I've gotten comfortable with quantity. Now I need to work on these other levers. And so like that's the order that I would think about it. It's like, hey, get the quantity down, but like once you start getting comfortable with like putting stuff out that isn't, you know, perfect, then you gotta like work the other levers, because you can't be done, because you're never done.
Right.
What were you gonna say about this? Oh, go ahead.
Well, to address what you said, I see what you mean, because I do it too, right? Like I will post things knowing that this is gonna get me like attention points. But then what? Like the then what part seems to be lacking, and that's where I feel self-conscious. Like, oh, like sure, like it's good because, you know, of course there's like some, you know, relational engagement in that way, but I feel like it's not good for the greater impact of the world if I just, you know, capture your attention for this little like blip.
Wait, can you say more on the then what? It's not obvious to me.
So like a lot of times, like when we post things, right, it's like, okay, like this was funny, or like, you know, this was something interesting, but then like then what, you know, well, does that improve the other person's life? Does it improve my life? Like there's a lot of like things that downstream where I feel like if it's not like helpful, then
bro, let yourself off the hook. It's not your job to fix everybody's problems. If you make somebody laugh, that's a service.
I mean, it could be a service, and like someone could do that, but I don't want to do that, is what I'm trying to say.
Oh, okay.
You know, like, which is a choice. Like, yeah.
I mean, okay, so there's the practical aspect of, okay, so there's a logistics problem here. I think it is an insane proposition and an insane burden to place on yourself that every piece of content needs to tangibly improve somebody's life, because you don't know who's going to consume it, and there's no way that you can predict what is missing from somebody's life. Maybe if you have like a homogenous audience that has like a similar problems, like they're all real estate brokers or whatever, you can like live in that like box. But we don't. We just like yapping and kind of, you know, philosophy yapping about the world, and, you know, frankly, trauma dumping on our chat. Thanks for listening. But
so yeah, Jason, that's what this content is about. Philosophy yapping and trauma dumping.
Yeah. So you know, this show is mostly for me, and I hope you like it. But no, okay.
Yes, it's actually, it's actually Kristen and Cameron's public therapy show.
Unironically.
Yeah,
but okay.
Public creator therapy show. Like, I think, and that's intentional, right? When we started off, like that's what we were trying to share and to like voice in a way, because I feel like it's very hard for me to find creators who would share this part, unless by the time they share it, it's like a sad YouTube video where they're crying about how terrible it is and they're leaving YouTube. So I'm like, okay, by that point, it's a little late.
We're somewhere on the spectrum between nobody gives a shit to I'm fed up with this industry and leaving YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. We gotta like scale it.
But let me round this off. Just make a list of things that have helped you in your life and have that be the bottom of the funnel somewhere, so that you can feel okay with the rationalization of capturing people top of funnel.
So many funnels.
Well, okay, but because like if you need to help somebody with everything that you do, which like that's fine, kind of feels like a compulsion a little bit, but I understand, I respect it. A list of things that have helped you in your life is going to be impactful for some percentage of people that find our stuff online. And so like it's kind of like why I made a reading list on my personal site, because like, hey, this book created a schism in my brain. And like these are the things that if you want to have similar schism experiences, maybe these are things that would cause that.
Okay. So what is that book in your background?
So this book in my background is The Bonfire of the Vanities. Let me grab it real quick.
So we are in Cameron's favorite Airbnb in Toronto.
What?
Somewhere in Canada?
Yeah, I'm in Toronto, eh? So this book, Tom Wolfe was a what year was it made? But it's a famous.
Did he write The Right Stuff? Or am I confusing?
Of course, I've read The Right Stuff.
But is it also by him?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I've read The Right Stuff.
Like, you have no idea how bad I wanted to be a steely-eyed missile man. You have no idea. 1987. So 1987. But it is a book. Yeah, Al, but I'm deep in like work. I'm not doing social stuff. I'm sorry.
He needs to be left alone.
Yeah,
as we have mentioned repeatedly.
So this book is about a bond salesman, which was like the 80s Wall Street meme. Like a rich old bond sales guy that basically like it's like a story about like race relations in the 70s.
Or nonfiction?
Fiction.
Okay.
Yeah, so this was the book that he had the nonfiction Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test, where he followed along with the Timothy Leary crowd, and then he wrote this fiction book. I think it might have been the other way around in order. No, it must have been the other way. But anyway, this book explored basically like this rich white guy hitting a black teen with his car while he was cheating on his wife. It's not as obvious as like, oh, that's a bad thing to do, because like maybe he was getting robbed because someone barricaded the road. And so it's like exploring him going through the same justice system that like the black youths that he hit with his car like would go through. And it is incredible how much overlap in this energy, in this book's energy, is in the like past 10 years of culture. Like it's incredible. The book is not for, I would say, the people that are faint of heart in terms of language, because it's written in the 80s. Obviously, there's a lot more liberal use of words that like straight up describing people by their race versus like them as a person, because that's how we talked in the 80s. But like there's like this huge overlap in race relations and how people just perceive other races. There's this huge overlap in status and wealth, and like literally all of the descriptions of his relationships with people in his like bond salesman Wall Street circle is like, oh, I see all of those things in my HBS cohort, which I don't really engage with because of all of these bad things. And because like when it comes out that this guy hit somebody with his car, and it like becomes a news story, all of his friends dump him because like none of them want to deal with that like kind of stuff. It's like a bunch of shallow rich people relationships where they're not actual relationships, they're like transactional relationships, and he can't help them anymore. Anyway, you read stuff from the 1800s, you read stuff from Roman times. Like, I
mean, it sounds like Great Gatsby.
Yeah, it's crazy how basically the same shit happens every life cycle. It's crazy.
So we should transcend it, right?
Yeah. So the reason, I started reading this because it's like one of those classic books where I think if you care about reading literature, you should just have read it at some point. But it just reinforces, oh, I'm just going to do the thing that makes me feel better, because chasing the things that are we called it like the shortcuts to growth that we won't feel good about. Even if I win, I'm not going to be as happy. And so like, if I'm not happy about it and I know I'm going to die, like what's the point, dude? Like just make the stuff that you enjoy. Obviously you got to like sustain yourself. It's not as simple as that. You need to make money to survive, but beyond the basic conditions, if you can choose how you do things and you're intentional about it, it's so much better. So much better.
Okay. I also like how you are literally invited to a social event from Blinks.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
We talk about wanting to be left alone.
It's about to be Christmas. My app sucks. I gotta lock in.
Yeah, okay. But there's other friends who are going. I feel like if I were you, I'd be so tempted.
Yeah.
So funny.
But I also I'm just like inherently antisocial. Not inherently. I just like my space.
Mm-hmm.
What are you gonna do to lean into your space over the holidays?
Well, I'm traveling. Hell
yeah.
Yeah. So which is fun, and like usually like because we are gonna spend a lot of time like hiking and fishing and stuff. It does tend to be quite isolated.
You're such a redneck.
Which is super nice. I'm a green neck.
What is that?
Like a hippie redneck hybrid.
But you still get sunburned.
No, I don't, because I'm good about you wearing a buff, which I guess is pretty redneck.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. But the thing is, we're also gonna meet friends who are gonna be in these areas, so it's not like totally like social isolation or anything like that. But I do find like maybe you feel the same way. It's like usually the end of year is when you're kind of like in this poignant, nostalgic reflection mode, right? Of like reviewing a year and being like, did it turn out the way you thought it did? Which for me, no. Like,
yeah, I mean, like, time is meaningless, but it's also a good excuse to reflect.
Yeah. Like,
I go ahead.
Did you journal this year?
I don't journal. I write poems.
Oh, okay. I guess the poems are a way, but in a form of journaling for you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I do feel like I'm kind of limping to the finish line this year. It's very much not a triumphant end of the. It's not a like triumphant close. It's a. Oh, let me take a breath and figure it out for next year. And obviously that's not going to happen. You're never going to figure it out. But the emotional release of at least emails slowing down for a couple weeks is real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I feel like I'm trying to do a better job of not doing like what I have historically done, which is like a lot of like, oh, you didn't get XYZ done this year, or like you didn't, reach those goals, and being more like, but like these things did happen.
Yeah. Okay, so related, speaking of Cameron being a company man, so I interned at Amazon for a summer, and I spent most of that summer just reading the company internal wiki because no one really was managing me in a meaningful way, and I figured out what I was going to spend my summer. Like I solved my summer project in like 3 weeks, and then I had like 8 more weeks to fuck off.
Nice.
It was great, and I just like absorbed all of Amazon's knowledge and culture, because most of the internal company document, or like not most, but a lot of interesting company internal documents were not behind any like passwords or like division. Yeah, so like I took a bunch of negotiating online courses for Amazon where they like crush their vendors, and I learned how they do that because I thought that would be useful to know.
Wow.
And so I went, like, my special interest for the summer became Amazon's internal culture and like strategy, and which was fun. But one of the things that's in there is Amazon focuses on mechanisms over like a lot of other things, because you can achieve a goal, but if you set up a mechanism, then that's kind of like a repeatable process to do things you want to do.
True value is in the playbook.
Yeah. And so I'm really trying to figure out mechanisms like going to that coffee shop at 7 a.m. on Tuesday, Thursday, and like being there for like mechanisms that facilitate the things that I consciously want to do. Like that's really what I'm trying to figure out over the next few weeks. I do honestly hate the holidays, because not hate, like obviously I love my family. I love seeing friends, but asterisk, it's not recharging for me. Like I don't go.
Can I tell them about how you messaged me in the middle of your Christmas party?
Please. And
then I was like sending you the meme of the Wojak looking guy in the attic looking down. I was Wait, is that you up there?
Yeah. So my household threw a Christmas party, invited a lot of people. I was there for 30 minutes and then I went upstairs.
That you messaged me. I was like, oh.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a big party person. Like, it's just not like best case at a large event. And I know that this is kind of status signaling, right? Because being an introvert in some ways is higher status on the internet now. But like,
did you know that?
What?
Oh, I'm talking about to the audience. Being an introvert is finally cool.
Yeah, it honestly kind of pisses me off that I spent my entire youth being a freaking weirdo, and if I was now like a kid again, I probably would be pretty sick in terms of like social status. Whatever, right? I'm me, and this is the internet, and that's my life, and I love my path, even though it was kind of fucked. But yeah, so like after like 20 minutes of socializing, I went upstairs and I just like got on the internet because I just didn't, there's other people down there. Like I didn't just leave 30 strangers in my house, but like, or 30 people in my house, but like, it just not for me.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then we had to strategize how he could get across the room back to his bedroom. And it was like planning a military escapade.
Yeah. And I actually didn't end up walking back to my room to go to bed. I just like stayed on the internet till 3 a.m. and the party was over. Oh yeah, no, I didn't tell you that part. I just stopped messaging you because I was like, oh, Kristen's gonna commiserate, and I was like, I don't need that. This is me. It's something else. Holidays aren't recharging for me because I'm the oldest, and actually, my parents watch this, so surprise, parents. I don't know if you knew this, but like,
what? Your parents watch this?
Sporadically, more my dad, and shout out my dad. I love my dad. My grandparents do because my grandpa's on TikTok and like I'm in his algorithm now. It's hilarious.
Oh, we're reaching our family is the
honestly
internet show. I think I'm heading towards the same path.
Yeah, but like I go home and I kind of pick up the oldest child thing where I support. Right. Like I, kind of like make stuff happen. And so it's kind of like a week of that. And then I'm going to go visit a friend in Virginia and love him as well. But also being in somebody else's space for a while, I am imposing on them, even though they don't feel that way. Like that's how I perceive it. Miriam, that's very nice. And so I come back from the holidays drained.
Right, because you have to use all your social batteries.
Yeah. And so what I would love is you do the holidays in December, and then you also have January off to recharge from the holidays. That's what I would love the world to be like. Maybe if I was in Europe, that would be the case. But yeah, so I don't know. Yeah, Pop, dude, he was a chemical engineer his whole life. He's so freaking smart. Like one of my early science influences. Like shout out Pop.
Oh, yeah. So let's see how it goes. I guess you and I will check in on each other. I assume during the holidays.
I mean, you could be texting from the trail.
Well, I'm also like there's Airbnbs and hotels involved. This is a cushy trip.
True.
Yeah.
True.
So I will hopefully be able to reach you. Yeah.
Are you gonna make anything while you're out there?
Oh, make anything. I was actually gonna let myself off because usually I do try to like make something like during my holiday, but I'm trying to do a true purging of the compulsive need to make, which is also a little insidious, right?
Interesting. I think I'm gonna do I think I am gonna do like a big reflection post, and it's gonna be oriented around like what I want to keep doing and what I don't want to keep doing, and not in like a practical way, just like hey, these are the things that gave me energy, these are the things that took my energy away. And
maybe I'll copy you then. I do need to write a year-end newsletter. I've been neglecting my newsletter.
I mean, if I ever finish
Substack.com.
If I ever finish this product, I'll have a way to supplement your newsletter. So
exactly. Where the heck is it? Come on, build faster.
I mean, trying my best. This is exhaustion in my soul.
what is your timeline for finishing the awesome Seymour newsletter enhancement product?
Well, 2 days ago was Friday. Now it's not Friday, and that's where we're at.
Okay, but like within like a few days, right? Like before end of the year.
I think I'm probably not going to launch over the holidays because that's not the best time. But probably early Jan is when we'll do the big relaunch.
Am I allowed to use it before then as a beta tester?
Oh yeah, for sure. Once it's working, I'll share it with you and anybody in the chat that DMs me about it. Quick pitch is you connect your social accounts and we generate kind of like a, hey, this is what I've been up to newsletter without you having to do any work by ranking your most engaged with content across all your platforms. So if you put videos out, great, we'll pull those. If you put casts or tweets out, we pull those. And so
that would be so helpful because I'm super bad about, I'm pretty active on Farcaster and but like my Substack newsletter is the one place where I feel like I should put up more content because like I do have subscribers, but it's such a pain to compile what you just said.
Like this kind of, so there's two kinds of newsletters. There's like I kind of classify them as like deep newsletters where somebody does like, Yash Bora does like a really good deep newsletter on like crypto. There's fintech people that do deep ones on like this is how Stripe works or whatever. So there's like those deep meaningful ones. Packy McCormick does the deep ones, and then there's more transactional ones where it's like, hey, what I've been up to elsewhere. And those ones are kind of soulless to make. It's like much more administrative than creative. And I think we can make no stress newsletters a thing because the process of doing it is pretty like it's hard in a pipes sense, but it's not hard in like a output sense.
Right. And you already have like most of it set up, right? Because the way Seymour works right now is like a link in bio. But then what you're doing is making it better by pushing it through the newsletter funnel.
Yeah,
since
exactly.
People don't tend to land on websites these days anymore.
Yeah, the repeated touch points with the people that like your stuff or already like what you do. That's the thing that we're trying to help with by just like, hey, you're already putting in the work. Let us get you outside of an algorithmic jail because you don't really get to decide who sees your stuff. If somebody opts into your like email updates, they'll see your best stuff every week, no matter what, because email is less gated than the algorithms.
Exactly. It is the one remaining like private bridge that you have with people you want to connect with. I know that email's not like, something people love in the Web3 space, but sadly it's the one thing that is like reliably sent remaining.
Yeah, it's the last bastion of internet freedom, unfortunately, and it's not really that free.
There's a lot of deliverability things to solve.
That's what I've been up to.
Oh, so I know this turned into a Seymour ad, but I really do want to know, like, are we sending? I got the impression that I take whatever you generate and I can put it into my Substack because I already have that optimized, or do I have to use your deliverable tool thing?
So for ease of like creation or like ease of send, it's coming from like us right now. And so and so like maybe we have an export version of it. But it's like it's hard for me to send an email from your stuff with existing systems. You know what I mean? And so
whatever, you just give me the HTML or whatever,
I mean, you'll do that, but most people won't do that.
Yeah, I understand. You need to offer what's the easiest option for most people, right? Yeah. But as you know, many creators who've been around for the block for a little bit have their own email systems, and it's also painful for us to switch systems, as you've known from my misadventure with ConvertKit. So
like we're gonna have email import options for sure. And maybe an export to HTML makes sense. It's just kind of like we don't know how much people are going to want to control that process, because I think the people that will use this the most are the people that like feel like they should be doing a newsletter and then really have never gotten around to doing it.
First place.
So, but we'll see. And like an export to HTML isn't crazy, but I might make you pay for it because like we also need to do that. So we'll see.
Okay, I will pay Cameron. All right. Thank you all so much for joining us. So this is our last stream for 2024, and we'll see you back the second week of January. Until then, take care. Have a lovely holiday.
Godspeed. Have a good one.